Are you somebody that struggles with not seeing any cervical fluid? This video is for you. Welcome back to the Cycle Support series, where we cut through the noise and finally make sense of what our body is trying to tell us. If you've been following me, you know cervical fluid is very important when it comes to tracking our fertility and knowing when we're approaching ovulation. It's our body's way of telling us estrogen is rising, and therefore our ovaries are preparing for ovulation. You can even take it so far as using it for birth control, and I've been using it since I came off my copper IUD and have been helping other women do the same as well. Of course, this is a different method, so this video is not for birth control reasons, but here we're talking about what is going on if we don't see any cervical fluid. These are a couple of the underlying reasons why you might not see cervical fluid, and you can take each point and see if that applies for you, and then rule out the ones that are not applicable to your situation. Especially the last point, not observing it properly, is very important for us to first identify, because you might actually see cervical fluid changes, but you're not observing it correctly. We want to also make sure that we track it for a couple of cycles to see, when does it show up? Does this align with the timing of the cycle? Does this align with what I usually see in my cycle? And then go from there. You might also want to add your basal body temperature reading to see, am I actually ovulating? Because that could also be a big factor if you're seeing cervical fluid or not. Because if you're not ovulating at all, you probably will not see as much cervical fluid because your body is not producing as much estrogen. And then we want to also assess, do you drink enough water? Because cervical fluid is mostly made up of water. So if we don't have proper hydration, we are not seeing as much cervical fluid as we probably would if we were properly hydrated. And then we want to also assess, are you eating enough food? Are you sleeping enough? And are you managing your stress properly? Because a lot of stress and undereating and over-exercising, those types of things can also make it harder for us to ovulate on a regular basis, especially if we're not properly nourished. That in turn will affect your cervical fluid, that will affect your ovulation, that will affect your luteal phase length and health, and so many more things when it comes to your cycle. As always, in the caption, I will share with you tips where you can get started to support your cervical fluid production, especially if you're somebody that is struggling with that.